All right, let's get right into it. When you think about where football started, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably some muddy field in England back in the 1800s, right? Well, what if I told you the real story is way, way older and it starts thousands of miles away? Today, we are launching a full-on investigation to find out the true and honestly pretty surprising history of the beautiful game. So, this is the big question, the one at the very heart of our mystery. For so long, the standard answer has just been, yep, of course. But the evidence we're about to dig into, it tells a much bigger, more incredible story. So, let's put on our detective hats and start following the clues. Here's our game plan for this little investigation. We're going to start with the earliest clues from ancient history, follow the game through its, let's call it, a chaotic teenage phase in the Middle Ages, see the exact moment the modern rules were created, and then watch its amazing journey to take over the world. Okay, so our investigation doesn't begin in Europe. Not even close. Our very first piece of evidence takes us on a trip way back in time, more than 2,000 years ago, in fact. As you're about to see, the idea of kicking a ball around seems to be a basic human thing. So many ancient cultures came up with their own games that, when you look at them, they feel like these long-lost relatives of football. Now, what's really wild about this is just how old and how widespread these games were. We're talking 3rd century BC in China, where they played a game called Cuju. The ancient Greeks had their own version, Episkiros. Over in Japan, around 600 AD, they were playing a really graceful game called Kemari. So this wasn't just a one-off invention. It was happening all over the planet. Let's zoom in on Cuju, because this one is a really key piece of evidence. The name literally translates to kickball. Simple enough, right? The goal was to get a leather ball, usually stuffed with feathers, through a net high off the ground without using your hands. Does that sound familiar? It's so similar that FIFA themselves officially recognize it as one of the earliest forms of football. Okay. Now let's jump way forward in time and across the globe to medieval Europe. Here, the game, well, it was a totally different beast. It was wild, it was messy, and it was unbelievably violent. They called it mob football, and it was basically a town-wide brawl. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just listen to this description from back in 1531. Sir Thomas Eliot called it a devilish pastime that resulted in envy, malice, rancor, and much murder. Yep, murder. These games were no joke. I mean, just try to picture it. Entire villages playing against each other. No limit on players. The field could be the whole town, and the goal might be to get an inflated pig's bladder all the way to the other village's church. It was so out of control that kings actually banned it multiple times. So, how in the world did we get from that absolute chaos to the smart, strategic game we watch today? Well, the big change happened in the mid-1800s. English public schools got tired of the total anarchy and decided, okay, it's time to tame this thing and actually write down some rules.
But this created a massive argument, basically a huge split in how the game should be played. On one side, you had schools like rugby who were all for picking up the ball and running with it. And on the other side, you had schools like Cambridge and Eton, who insisted it had to be a dribbling game, feet only. This one disagreement would end up creating two totally separate sports.
Everything finally came to a head in 1863. A bunch of clubs met in a London pub to hash out the rules once and for all.
The arguments got super heated, especially over hacking, which was literally just kicking your opponent in the shins. In the end, the clubs that were okay with handling the ball and hacking people just walked out. They went on to form the sport of rugby. The clubs who were left, they founded the very first football association and wrote down the 13 rules for the game we call association football, or soccer.
And with one set of rules, the game was finally ready to go global. British sailors, merchants, and soldiers, they took these new rules with them everywhere they went, and the sport just spread like wildfire across every continent.
And just how far did it go? Take a look at this number, 211. That's how many nations are members of FIFA today. To put that in perspective, that's more countries than are in the United Nations. It's just staggering. It really shows you the incredible global power of this sport.
So, what's the final verdict from our investigation? Well, it's pretty clear. England didn't invent football, but they played an absolutely critical role of writing down the rules. The beautiful game doesn't have one single inventor or one single home. Instead, it has this amazing, rich, multicultural history, an evolution that's been happening for thousands of years, all over the world. From an ancient Chinese court, to a medieval free-for-all, to a pub in London, football's journey has been nothing short of incredible. And that just leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. After more than 2,000 years of constant change, what's next for the world's favorite